In this video, we're going to take a look at a brown ink by Diamine in their 150th anniversary series, Terracotta. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the brown ink playlist, so if you'd like to see more browns, you can find them there. I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. Let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading. If you look at Terracotta, it starts much darker, gets a bit lighter, and then very dark at the TA again. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade rather well, as the goes from very light on the T to very dark on the he. Quick goes dark to light to dark. Brown starts darker, gets lighter, and gets darker again. 11 seconds to dry. Medium is just a little bit lighter than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading, as quick just shifts back and forth so many times from darker to lighter as it works through the word. Brown goes darker to lighter to darker to lighter to darker. It's gorgeous here. 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't really show a lot of color variation, but it is very nice in the writing. And the smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Platinum 3776 with a music nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Let's take a look at the next writing sample done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 18 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does show some shading. The top of the B in brown is darker and it works its way is lighter, it gets darker. The O gets a little lighter and then it gets darker again, where Fox goes lighter to darker. 24 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't really show any color variation, and there is a little bit in the medium, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this is a very red-leaning brown because there is so much red in it. It really pushes its way up, really grabbing a hold of the paper as it goes fairly evenly most of the way. Now, at the very top of this, you do see some brown there with this red. It's really kind of interesting. The one on the right that's allowed to dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked in the water. And that line on the bottom that's a bit darker does look pretty brown leaning. We get that red that's pushing its way up, and when it gathers at the top, we see the same kind of brown at the very top that's at the bottom line. But it does mean that you might expect just a little bit of resistance for this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade rather nice as quick goes lighter to darker. Brown goes darker to lighter. The is a very dark compared to the words around it. 13 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, not much for shading. 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, and we got that, and the medium doesn't really show any, and we really didn't get any. In the smear test, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I don't use this in a note-taking situation. Too much blowout. I'm just risk averse. So don't do it if you need to go back and highlight. Water is starting to reactivate and lift much more of the ink than I expected based on that chromatography. I'm not seeing that brown left behind. It did only take water to get it out of my pen. Now the pen flush, doing everything that water did, acting a little bit faster, but not much faster. Again, I didn't need it. And the 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it. The next writing sample is done on original Crown Mills paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is just a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading here, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The scrubbies aren't really showing us much for color variation, we're not getting much, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine's Terracotta has a viscosity of 1.64, making this a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests are done and all of that, there's a link to that video down in the description. Now let's take a look at black and red notebook paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, only a couple spots where you see some shading like the he in the K in quick. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is dark like the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation. We do get a little bit, but this is a bit more absorbent paper. The medium shows none, we got none, and a smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine's Terracotta has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. The last writing sample is done on limon paper. Now we do have a bunch of spots that really bleed heavy into the paper. They are not coming through the paper though. So what this means is, depending on your particular sensitivity, you may not be able to use the back of the page, or you might. But in either case, it's not going to ruin the page underneath. The 1.1, it has no feather, tiny feathers in like the D of Diamine, the A of Terracotta, the first A. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub. A lot of tiny feathering, the entire word quick, the entire word jumps, the entire word over. A lot of tiny feathering, not the end of the world, considering this is not the highest production value of paper. It does spread just a little bit, not all the way to a broad. No halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation. We're not getting it. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Terracotta, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a blue-black ink from Callifolio, their Bosphore. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Diamine's Terracotta? I like it a lot. A red-leaning brown with great shading. I do like red-leaning browns, and Diamines have a few amazing browns. This is one of them. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? A wet pen will put down a much darker tone, but it's going to eat up any of the shading this ink has to offer. I really do prefer it from a wet or a medium flow or dry, medium or fine pen, because it puts down a very nice tone and really shows off the shading that this ink can have. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Iroshizuku's Momiji, or Autumn Leaves.